All right. So this last weekend I went to this last weekend I went to Hartford, Connecticut to go play in the Flesh and Blood Calling, which is kind of like a Grand Prix if you were a Magic the Gathering player. And it was coincided with the release of the new set called Heavy Hitters. So this is going to be the first event in the States where the set is legal, and the main event, the Calling, is a limited event. It's what's called sealed. So basically everybody gets 6 packs. You open up your 6 packs, you build a deck, and then you play the tournament with those 6 packs. If you make day 2, then it switches to draft, which we may or may not talk about later. But that means that the first big tournament of the event is limited, which is not my favorite, but I do need to practice it. And the second big event is the Battle Hardened, which is Classic Constructed. So the day before, I'm like doing some packing and trying to get a bunch of like content stuff out. I'm kind of stressing because the Runeterra news had kind of like just come out. And so I'm like scrambling to like do things, get things set up, and I'm like super stressing. But I was happy to be able to kind of just like go spend a weekend with friends and like kind of forget about everything that was happening. The Pro Tour for Flesh and Blood is coming up in March, so next month. And it's going to be Heavy Hitters Draft and also Classic Constructed. So this will be really good for me, right? I need to go and I need to get the practice for the limited portion of the Pro Tour because I have a long and storied history of being not very good at limited because I just prefer constructed. So I never really practice limited. But this time is going to be different. This time I'm not going to be held back by my lack of limited skill. So yeah, night before, I'm stressing. I finally fall asleep at like 1:30 in the morning, which sounds fine until you realize that my flight leaves at 5:30 in the morning, and the airport's about an hour away. So I leave at like 3:45 in the morning. So I've got 2 hours of sleep, and I cannot sleep on transportation. Like I can't sleep on planes. I can't sleep in cars. It doesn't matter. I just cannot do it. So I wake up, kind of, get in my car, everything's packed, start driving over, and fly over to Hartford. I'm on my plane, and about an hour into my flight, I'm reading my book, and there's a bit of a commotion in front of me. And I look up and I see that the lady in front of me has just vomited everywhere. Just everywhere. No bag, no nothing. Just right in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so unlucky. I'm in like the 3rd most unlucky seat on the plane, right? Because the first 2 most unlucky seats are the people who have to sit next to her. The next unlucky seat is me. The people in front of her don't even know what's happening. So I like pull my bag back from underneath the seat, and I'm just like, Luckily, I don't have a very good sense of smell, so like wasn't the worst thing on the planet, but that was, a great way. I have no sleep. I already feel like shit. Just a great way to start off the trip. But I do get into Hartford. I get into the Airbnb. I'm staying with like a bunch of friends and stuff, and we go and we get some food. And yeah, it was pretty solid. It was a pretty solid night. Nothing to really write home about. I ended up falling asleep at about 3 in the morning, which is bad because I have to be up at 8 in the morning to go to the calling. So now over the last 2 days, I've had 7 total hours of sleep, which is a bit of an issue when you're going to spend all day playing a strategy game, right? I'm already exhausted. I feel like crap, but we get up and we go to the convention center to start playing the calling. I'm kind of walking around, like saying what's up to people, right? I know a lot of people in the like Flesh and Blood space, so I got to, say hi to everybody. And there's this weird thing that keeps happening. People just keep coming up to me, and they say and do the exact same thing, right? People always come up to me and say like, "Oh, yeah, I like your videos," and "Oh yeah, I don't play LOR as much anymore," blah blah blah, blah, right? But like, the exact same thing would always happen. People would come up to me, they'd put their hand on my shoulder, and they'd say, "Sorry about LOR, man." Like verbatim, every time. And I appreciate that people are saying that. I appreciate that people are like, this must be rough for you. I hope everything goes better, all that kind of stuff. But it was just very funny because it was always the exact same way. They always said, "Sorry about LOR. Sorry about LOR, man. Yo, bro, sorry about LOR." And they put their hand on my shoulder every single time. And it was just really funny. So that's going on. We end up sitting down for the calling, right? And I'm getting ready to like open my packs. Basically what it does is they come around and they're just like dropping like a box at your tables, and then you open them, you take out your 6 packs or whatever, and then you get ready. I'm not the one touching the box. The guy across from me is the one touching the box and handing out the packs. So he opens it up and he hands the other 2 people in our like 4 spot on the table their 6 packs, and then he grabs the 2 remaining like clumps of 6 packs, right? And he goes like this to hand me mine, and right before he sets it down, he hesitates, thinks, and then switches. Right? Which doesn't matter because you can't like tell which clumps of packs have like the better pool. You have no way of knowing, right? But it was just like, I just gave it a little chuckle. And I always offer to like trade packs. I'm like, okay, here's my 6 packs. Like, if anybody wants to trade some of theirs, just grab them and put one of yours down because I think it's fun. But yeah, he did the little switch and I thought it was kind of funny. And then we start like registering deck list, right? So what happens is the people across from you open their packs and they show you all the things really quickly. They just like fly through all the cards. That way, when you're registering the pool, if you see something that's like a banger card, but your opponent didn't show it to you, you're like, that's a bit sussy, right? Like it makes it more difficult for people to like sneak in cards and cheat and stuff because they have to open it in front of you. It's a really good thing to be doing. So the guy across from me starts opening his packs, and it's they're nuts. He just starts going through all the cards, and the first pack I'm like, damn, that's a good ass pack. And then the second pack I'm like, damn, that's a better pack. And every single pack is just gas. Just gas on gas on gas on gas. Every single card, insane. Probably one of the best sealed pulls I've ever seen. Like, just absolutely nuts. And I'm like, wow, man, he did a really good job swishing those packs, right? He made the right choice. So I start opening my pool. And it's not great. Do you think RNG super big factor in sealed if you pull a mythic or something? Not in Flesh and Blood. In Magic, yes. In Flesh and Blood, there aren't that many like bombs. I start opening my pool, and it's not very good. There's a lot of like mediocre stuff, and it's all spread out between the classes. So I don't have like anything that's kind of working out, but surely it'll like fix itself with the other packs. So I open the other packs, the other 3 packs, and they're worse. It's so bad. It's so bad that by the time I finished showing the guy across from me all my packs, he looks at me and he's like, "Damn, bro. What'd you bring for the battle, Hardened?" Which is the tournament to the next day that I would only get to play if I don't day 2 the calling. Like, it was so bad. Like, hilariously bad. I end up putting together a warrior deck, not because I have a good warrior deck, but because it's the only deck where I have enough playables. It's so bad. And my equipment is terrible. Absolutely terrible. So everything's horrible. I have no sleep. I'm hungry. I feel nauseous, right? And my pool is the worst sealed pool on the goddamn planet. But all I have to do is get to day 2. If I can get to day 2, then it switches to draft, and I can like turbo windmill spike this deck in the trash and just start over, right? And so that's what I try to do. I'm just getting out there, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm just cheesing people. Like I'm just hustling and grinding and trying to eke out every single point of damage because I have one attack reaction that says if your opponent blocks with an attack action card, you can give your attack +5. And so that's just how I'm winning games. I'm just like never blocking with that card. I find the card, I put it in my arsenal to save it, and it never leaves until my opponent's at like 4. And then I attack them, and if they block with an attack reaction, I kill them. And that's like the only way my deck can win games, right? So I start off 2-1 actually. And I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that I'm actually like making this happen. You know, I need to go 6-2. So I would need to do 4-1. Round 4 comes around and I eke it out. Just barely eke it out. I have like 2 cards left in deck. You played Kasai or Olympia? I played Olympia because I literally can't draw cards because my deck is terrible. Like I can't do anything with Kasai. I probably should have played her anyway because of her like activated ability makes people block more. Not relevant, whatever. But like, yeah, I end up winning round 4 with like 2 cards left in my deck because I used the +5 card. I'm like, blocks with an attack action, thinks for a while, and then says, yeah, I'll block for 3. And then I'm like, ah, +5. Get there. 3-1. Literally like the dream. I'm pulling out all the stops to try to get these dubs. All I have to do is go 3-1, right? My opponent reports. He just immediately like pulls out his phone, hits the button. I lost, right? Whatever. I check it, refresh, and it says, yep, result accepted. Round 5 starts. Remember, we have to 3-1. We got to win 3 before we lose 2. And I refresh my app, which tells me like my pairing. And it just says round 5 in progress, but it doesn't have my pairings on it, which is kind of weird. But like every now and then there's like problems with the program or like the software or whatever, right? You know, it is what it is. So I go to the judge. I'm like, hey, judge, I don't have a pairing. Like, can you help me out? And they go, yeah, of course. So what happens is if you don't have a pairing or whatever, like if something like this happens, what they do if they can't like immediately fix it is they just remake the entire round, right? They say, hey, everybody stop. We're going to repair the round because something happened, and then we'll play the round. It's really no big deal. It's like annoying, but it's like it happens sometimes. But the judge I talked to is like, oh yeah, that's because you're actually on the feature match this round. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it sucks I have to be on this feature match with this horrendous deck. So we're walking around trying to figure out who I'm playing against in the feature match and where I'm supposed to go. And like 5+ minutes go by. And then finally, he can't figure it out. So he calls over the head judge. And the head judge is like, huh. Yeah, he's supposed to be in the feature match, but he's not coming up in the system. So we walk to the front table. It's been like 10 minutes at this point. So everyone's already playing their games. We walk to the front table where the judges are, and they're just like talking for a while. And I'm just sitting there like, you know, doing nothing. We're like 10, 15 minutes into the round now. And the head judge comes back and she's like, is there a chance that you accidentally clicked drop on the app? And I'm like, well, I mean, there's always like a chance, right? Like I can't say no because I can't prove that there's 0% chance that I didn't hit the drop button. So I'm like, there's a chance, yeah. But my opponent's the one that reported, and your opponent can't drop you. So I didn't even click a button on the page, right? I just looked at it. So like, really, no, there's not really a chance. And so some more time goes by. They're trying to figure something out. What they're trying to do is they're trying to find proof that I clicked drop because apparently I am no longer in the tournament. I have been dropped from the tournament at 3-1, totally live for top 8 and everything, and definitely live for day 2. So they're trying to find, drop isn't lose. No, drop means you are removed from the event. It's worse. So they're trying to find like proof that I dropped myself. But they can't find it because I didn't. So they come back and make it sound like the judges are the bad guys here, but they're doing their best, right? So the head judge comes back and says, hey, our guy wouldn't have clicked drop for you. There's no reason he would have done that. So we have to assume that you clicked drop. And I'm like, well, I didn't. I have no reason to click drop, right? I'm still in the event. I'm 3-1. I'm still live here. I've been working my ass off for these wins. And so the judge says, hey, the issue is we can't set a precedent for giving people who accidentally drop wins. And I'm upset, obviously. But honestly, here on this video, I'm more outwardly upset than I was in person, right? I was clearly sad, but I understand what, I can't what am I gonna do? Yell at him, right? That's not gonna help me. So I'm like, so what do we do? And the obvious solution is to just put me back in the tournament and give me a game loss. So after all of that, I'm 3-2. I lose my one loss, my one more loss that I can get because I got accidentally dropped from the event. And then it's the next round. And not only is it the next round, and not only did I have all these issues, but I get the pair up, which means that normally in constructed, I don't care about getting the pair up. But in limited, I'm getting the pair up, which kind of sucks because it means that my opponent's deck is better because they're winning more games and that they're likely better, right? Again, in constructed, don't care about getting the pair up because I'll play against anyone. But in limited, the actual power of the deck matters a lot. And so the better people's win rates, the higher the power of the deck. So I play my opponent and he's like, oh, yo, it's cool to get to play against the MajiinBae. And I'm like, yeah, man, what's up, dude? And I'm having a bad time, obviously, right? I'm upset. I'm tired. I'm fucking exhausted. I've been traveling. I'm running on 7 hours of total sleep over the last 2 days. Everything that happened the last round happened, and I'm just like, ugh. And then my opponent just blasts me. Just blast me. For those of you who play Flesh and Blood and know what's in the heavy hitter set, my opponent's playing Betsy, flips over Good Time Chapeau, and bet bigs me on turn 0. And then just never stops. So yeah, obviously I did not win. I got absolutely fucking rolled. And I'm 3-3 and I'm out of the calling. So that was my experience in the calling. Luckily, the next day is Classic Constructed for the Battle Hardened, and I get to play Kano. But the issue with losing the calling, one is I flew out to the East Coast from California, right, to take extra shots at getting what's called a PTI, a Pro Tour invite. And then I lost it because this happened, right? Just because I got phenomenally unlucky in the entirety of the sealed event. And I need a PTI because I missed the Pro Quest season previously for this upcoming Los Angeles Pro Tour. So I have to cash in my only other Pro Tour invite. So if I want to make sure that I can go to Worlds this year, I need another Pro Tour invite. So I lose this first bullet. I end up playing some side events. I play a $40 side event, sell the prizes for $140, and spend that money on buying alcohol. We'll get to that. But it's time to get ready for the Battle Hardened, basically. And there's a bunch of people there that I know, right? And one of them, the owner of Realm Games, Keith, is like, hey, why don't you come out to dinner with us? And I'm like, okay. So it's like me and like a couple others in like my group, and Puffball Panda's there, and we all go out to dinner. But the issue is we don't leave the venue. The reservation's at 9:15. We don't leave the venue till like 9:45 because of timing issues on other events. So we finally leave. We get to the restaurant at 10 p.m. People don't even have food yet. And we're exhausted, right? Like I said, I've slept 7 hours over the last 2 days with all the traveling and everything that happened. And playing in a card game tournament all day is so tiring, right? And then you're at a convention center, so your food that you're eating is like chicken strips, right? You have like chicken strips, fries, and that's like it. You're eating crap. So I feel so bad. But we're at this restaurant. It's a really nice restaurant. We start ordering some food. It takes 30 minutes for us to get water, which is brutal. It takes another like 15 minutes for us to get silverware, which is brutal. We have a big ass group though. Huge group, right? Like 14, 15 people. And yeah, we're just hungry. We're tired. And Monte Cristo and Darkodius are at a bar. They're already drinking, and they're waiting for us they want us to come say, what's up, right? And we want to go hang out with them. They're our friends. But the issue is that we need to eat food. And they've been at this bar already for like 3 hours, and we haven't even gotten appetizers yet. But we finally get food. We eat the food. It's pretty good food. It was great. Thank you, Keith, if you watch this, for inviting us. We had a great time. But we leave the restaurant at like 12:30, right? And then we walk across the street to the bar with Darkodius and Monty, and both of them are like fucked up. They're already toasted, man. They are into it. So we walk into the bar, and they're like, hey, let me buy you a drink. Monty bought me like a mule, and I start trying to catch up like as fast as possible. Buying I drink that mule, I buy another mule, I get another drink, I'm slamming them, right? And we have a good time. We're hanging out. It's really fun. It is always good seeing like online friends at IRL events, right? But the issue is by the time all this is done, and we get back, and we get all our stuff ready for the next day, it's 4:30 in the morning. The battle hardened starts at 9. I haven't had even half a night of sleep in like the whole weekend. So go to sleep, wake up at 8, right? Maybe even like 7:45 because we got to be there at 8:30 because I got to write up my deck list. I'm playing Kano, by the way, which I'll talk about in a second. And we get to the event, and I'm just like, I feel terrible. I'm like nauseous. I'm not even like really hungover. I'm just nauseous because I haven't eaten right all weekend. I haven't been drinking enough water. I haven't been sleeping, right? Like I feel like shit, man. I feel so bad. But luckily, as Yos with Most pointed out in chat, you don't need sleep to play Kano. He's only like the most complicated hero in the game. And Kano, if you don't play Flesh and Blood, is a wizard hero, which means a couple of things. One, Kano has less life. So your opponent has generally 40 life. Kano has 30 life. Your opponent generally has equipment that blocks for roughly 6 to 10 or 12, right? Your equipment blocks for maybe 1. So Kano has less life and equipment that doesn't block. But your cards also suck. Your cards are individually, on a pound-for-pound basis, much worse than what everyone else is playing, right? On a card-for-card, in a vacuum, they're bad. So, what you get in return is that Kano has a sort of multiplicative damage effect, where basically he has a card called Blazing Aether. It costs 0, and it says, for however much arcane damage, which is the damage that Kano deals, you've dealt this turn, deal that much again, right? So if I've dealt 5 damage, Blazing Aether deals 5 more damage. You also have cards called like Aether Wildfire that basically say it deals 4, but if it deals 4 on your opponent's turn, however much damage this is dealt gets added to all the other cards that deal arcane damage that turn. The issue is that none of them are instants. So you only get 1 action a turn. And on your opponent's turn, when Aether Wildfire is active, you have 0 actions. So you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get to do these things on your opponent's turn. Because of Kano's ability, it's like you could pitch an entire card, a blue, 3 resources, which is the maximum of resources a card can give you, to activate Kano, which flips the top card of your deck. And if it's a non-attack action, your entire deck's non-attack actions, you can cast it at instant speed. And so that means you get to do your combo on your opponent's turn, but only if you have the right pieces and the top of your deck likes you, and also you have enough blues and enough resources. And then also, if your opponent just stops some of the Aether Wildfire damage, instead of doing tons of damage, you actually do like no damage. Kano's weird. It's really weird. But there's a lot of Guardian players at this event, and Guardian's a really good matchup for Kano. So, you know, I'm feeling pretty okay. We have some bad matchups. Namely, we don't want to play against Prism, which is an auto lose, but Prism's not very good. So it's like, hopefully we just don't run into it. We don't want to play against Dash, specifically Boost Dash. There's 2 types of Dash. There's Boost Dash, which is like the better Dash deck. And it's quite good into Kano. And then there's a Fatigue Dash strategy that's way less good, because the more time you give Wizard, the more likely you are to just die. And Fatigue tries to run your opponents out of cards, and if you're playing against a competent Kano player, that's not really possible. I also don't really want to run into KO. It's like kind of 50-50 against our KO deck that we've been testing, but he's a new hero, and maybe someone found a better list, and it's not my favorite matchup. I'm going to be honest with you. So, yeah, we start the event. And again, I can't fucking think. I'm like just feeling like garbage. Just actual factual garbage. But the event starts, and I'm just crushing people. I'm running into Guardians, man, and I'm just blasted. I walk to my first round. And my opponent looks at me, and I'm well known for playing Wizard. Like when people think MajiinBae in Flesh and Blood, they think Wizard, right? And so I walk to my seat. I'm about to sit down, and my opponent walks to the seat, and he looks at me, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Majin. Are you playing Kano?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he just like, so he flips over Bravo, which is a Guardian, good matchup for me. Flips over Bravo, and he looks at me and he says, "I had to make room for the new helmet." Which, if you play Flesh and Blood, you know what my opponent's telling me. You know my opponent's telling me that he trimmed on his arcane barrier, which is the only way to block arcane damage, right? So he's like, "Bro, I had to make room for the helmet." And I'm like, "You didn't." So he flips it up. He's only got AB1. And he just gets blasted, right? Like AB1 with a deck that can't put on a lot of pressure is very tough for Kano to play into Kano. And Guardian's like kind of slow, right? So blast him. Move on. Blasting. Round 4 comes up. And my opponent's on Dash. I'm 3-0. Hell yeah. There's 8 rounds. I'm going to have to 7-1 to make top 8. Maybe you can make it at 6-2, but it's like a coin flip and not even a good coin flip. So 7-1. My opponent's playing Dash, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to play against Dash, man. This matchup sucks. What Dash does that's so good into Wizard is Dash has a lot of very efficient attacks that don't cost a lot of resources. They don't have on hits, or anything else. They're just pure damage, but that's really good against Kano because he has such low life that the damage becomes on hit die very quickly, right? And so it forces things out. And you want to combo on your opponent's turn. So you want to hold a lot of cards, wait for them to burn a bunch of their resources, and then try to combo them when they attempt to kill you, usually is what you do. But because Dash's attacks are so resource light and efficient, they get to just start attacking you and push lethal while keeping cards in hand. And then everything has go again in the Dash deck. So they never stop attacking you. And if you start blocking, they know you can't combo them, and they get to use their entire hand, right? And it's really bad. And then if you try to fire early, Dash naturally gets Arcane Barrier 3, which is very, very good against Kano if you have a lot of blues and you can put on a lot of pressure without using most of your hand, which, as we've established, Dash can do, right? So it's not a good matchup. And I'm like really doing the most out here, trying to like salvage it. And it gets to a point where I have like double Blazing Aether, blue in hand, and I have like Aether Wildfire in the arsenal, and that's not quite really what you want with Kano. It's almost what you want, but not quite. And I just have to go for it. So I just go for it. I pitch the Blazing Aether in the blues, have the Blazing Aether, put it on top, blah, 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 do all the Kano things, and I put my opponent. My opponent is dead to the Blazing Aether I have in my arsenal. Except, some of you might be thinking, but Majin, didn't you just say that your arsenal card was Aether Wildfire? And yes, you would be correct. It is Aether Wildfire, not Blazing Aether. But I forgot. Because I'm running on no sleep for the entire weekend. I haven't eaten well. I feel like absolute shit, and my brain is mush. So I think that I have Blazing Aether in my arsenal, but I don't. I have Aether Wildfire. So I go to cast the second Blazing from my arsenal, and I just say, and Blazing. And I push forward my Storm Striders, and I flip over the Blazing Aether. That's not actually Blazing Aether. From my arsenal. And I go, oh no, that's not the right card. Because it's Aether Wildfire, which I cannot actually cast. Because I don't have the resources, because I drew a red instead of 3 blues. And my opponent, bless his soul, says, don't worry about it. Put him back. What my opponent could have done is, since I pushed the Storm Striders up front and attempted to cast another spell, they could have called a judge, and they're completely in the right to do this, if they choose to. They could have called a judge and said, Judge, my opponent attempted to activate Storm Striders. And then tried to cast an illegal card, which would have to be pulled back. But the important part is he tried to activate Storm Striders. So it would have still been activated, and I would have lost the only way I had of possibly winning the game. And that was very, very kind of him. And I ended up firing again, like the following turn, and getting like literally exactly lethal. So thanks, man. Sorry. But I appreciate that. I'm 4-0. And I'm just like, damn. 4-0. I'm feeling like shit. Brain hurty. Oh my god. Sorry, I forgot round 2. I need to talk about round 2. Round 2 is a Kano mirror, which is great. I love Kano mirrors. Everyone else seems to hate them. But it's a Kano mirror, which is weird because you have no health and both of you can cast at instant speed. And then my opponent sits down and he's like, oh, I'm pretty new to Kano, but I've been putting in like a lot of work. And I was like, oh, sick. Yeah, hell yeah. And then he goes, but I've never played a wizard mirror. So he's like, so I am going. Well, he says, I'm like kind of new to Kano, blah, blah, blah. But I've been putting in a lot of work. He's telling me how he's been practicing and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's sick. That's exactly what I would recommend. And he goes, but I don't think I'm going to win this game. And I was like, no, you can totally win this game. Like you said, you've been putting in a lot of practice, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I've never played a wizard mirror. And I'm like, this is going to be tough for you. And then to rub salt in the wound, the judge comes over and says, hey, you guys are on the feature match, which means it's going to be on camera and the announcers are going to talk over it. So we go to the feature match. We start playing, and my opponent, I'm going to give them credit. This is going to sound like not a compliment, but it actually is. My opponent played very well for someone who doesn't know how the Kano mirror works. Right? I think if I could take someone who's very, very good at playing Kano, but never played a wizard mirror, that's exactly what it would look like, I think. Can you watch it? You can watch it on YouTube. And then next week, I'm going to actually do a breakdown of my feature matches in the Battle Hardened. Thank you, Shoutouts, for posting the link. So we play, and my opponent's like trying to pitch stack, which is like what you should kind of pitch stack in the Kano mirror, because one of you is going to get to it at least. Which basically means like setting up your deck. The way Flesh and Blood works is your resource cards, it's called pitching them. So your cards can be cast, blocked, or pitched, like all of them, which is why Flesh and Blood's so great. So when you pitch a card for resources, it doesn't go away. It goes on the bottom of your deck, and there's not a lot of shuffle effects in Flesh and Blood. So you can actually craft your hands for late game, right? You can make your hands, because you draw 4 cards each turn, for late game. Which is a really interesting part of Flesh and Blood. It's like all your cards are HP cards and mana. Yeah, exactly. It'd be like if Lightning Bolt also prevented 3 damage, but it could also give you 1 mana, right? And so we start playing it, and my opponent, again, does, I think, exactly what I would do if I didn't have a bunch of Kano experience. Basically, the way I like to play the Kano mirror, there's a couple ways to play it. Some people like to combo. I think this is bad. I think people who just look for the combo is probably the worst way to play the Kano mirror, because if you can't get the combo, you just lose. And comboing into a fellow Kano is very difficult because you're both playing energy potions. And for every point of damage that you reduce on Aether Wildfire, because it's multiplicative, you're stopping like 5+ damage for the entire combo, right? So if I have a blue in my hand and my opponent decides now's the time to combo, instead of doing like 36 damage, they only do 21 damage. And if they blow their wad and don't have anything left, they just die. Like, it is impossible for them to win the game, basically. So I think that's probably the worst way to play the mirror. The other 2 ways are pitch stacking your deck. Your entire plan is to just giga stack your deck and make it so that if you get to the pitch stack, you're going to be able to go like double Wildfire, double Blazing, Tome, draw a bunch of cards, right? You're just like, if you get to your pitch stack, you get to do a nuts combo. And then there's the other way. This is the way I prefer to play it, is that I play, I don't play for combo at all. At all. Literally not even a little bit. All I do is I'll be casting my Aether Wildfires on my main phase just for 4 damage, and I'm just chipping. Because if you're trying to giga stack, you have to pitch reds, which is inherently inefficient, right? And you cannot cast some of your combo cards because you need your combo cards, right? Which means that you're kind of inefficient on both sides, which allows me, the other Kano player who's not doing that, to be chipping damage. So usually when I play Kano mirrors against people who are trying to giga stack, I end the game at higher than starting life total because of Tome of Fendal. And all I'm doing is trying to chip a couple damage each turn. And if I'm doing that, my opponent has to play very defensive because they're already inefficient. I'm dealing damage to them. And on their turn, they can't cast things. Because if they're pitching their cards to prevent my damage on my turn, if they try to play cards on their turns, they won't have any cards left. And if I have the combo, they die on the spot, right? So it's like triple inefficient. And what this allows me to do is, because Kano's activated ability is like pitch a blue, activate it, banish the top card of your deck, you can play it this turn at instant speed. It allows me as the like aggressor, which is kind of funny because since I'm not giga stacking, I'm also the control deck. It allows me as the, let's just call me the aggressor here, to get to my pitch stack faster than my opponent who's giga stacking. And then this happened in my feature match versus Julian in a different Battle Hardened, who also won a Battle Hardened on Kano recently. Good for him. Well done. He giga stacked, and then Aether Wildfire doesn't just increase the arcane damage that you do. Aether Wildfire increases all arcane damage for that turn. So if you Aether Wildfire me, but I'm at 30 and you're low, I'm just going to wait until you commit enough of your resources to try to combo me, and then I'm just going to cast 1 spell for 9. And you have to not die, which is really tough, right? So it makes the Kano mirror fucking bizarre. That's why it's so difficult to play. if you don't have the experience. So basically, I'm just sitting there, chip down my opponent, and then I eventually kill him. He played really well. He was a really good sport about it. It's really tough to play the Kano mirror if you don't have a lot of experience. So next week, we are actually going to break down that entire game on the channel. I thought it'd be fun. And yeah, so moving on. Round five. We're 4-0. Remember, we need to 7-1 or 8-0 to make top 8. And I'm thinking, please just give me a Guardian player. There's a lot of Guardians here. Victor's super free. Bravo's pretty easy. And I look down at my pairings, and it's against Lucas Oswald, who's a very, very good player. Now, Luke is probably a better player than me. But unfortunately for Lucas, he's on Bravo. What's the strong thing that Guardian does? Guardian is very good at being defensive and has high attacks that have very relevant on hits that are hard to block out. So Lucas is on Bravo, which is good for me. Also, unfortunately for Lucas, his games against me have been very unfortunate for him because he's done like one little thing. Maybe he steps out of line just a little bit, and then I'm playing Kano, and he just explodes. So let's see how this one plays out, right? I sit down. He's like, I'm on fucking Bravo. And I'm like, yeah. And we start playing. He flips over AB1. I'm going first. We shuffle up. Good luck. All that stuff. I'm going first. And I Kano off the top, and it's the goods, right? And I'm just like, bang, you take 10. Arsenal Blazing Aether. And I get to like set up the top of my deck, I think. So I know that it's like blue, 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 red. And it's my turn. And I go, bloop. And Lucas just taps out for an attack, and I activate Kano, and it's the Aether Flare that I knew that it was. And then I activate Kano again, and it's blind, and it's Aether Wildfire. And he goes, oh. And I just show him my hand. I just like flip my hand. It's double blue. And then I flip my arsenal, and it's Blazing Aether. And he just fist bumps me, starts picking up his cards, looks over to the game clock, and goes, 15 seconds. Like 15 to 20 seconds had passed in the match timer before he died. Which was like, gotta be the fastest kill in like Flesh and Blood history or something. So I thought that was just hilarious. And Lucas is a good sport about it. I really like him. He's a good guy. So we're 5-0, right? How much do they skew cards so that you want to use them as mana or attacks or blocks? A bit. You'd have to like get into Flesh and Blood to really like feel it, but yeah. So yeah, 5-0. We need to do we need to go 7-1 or 8-0. So we need to go 2-1 basically. I really want to win this next round. So I sit down, and my opponent is playing Dash. Damn it, right? And I'm like trying to fish to see if my opponent is on Boost Dash or Fatigue Dash. Because Boost Dash, big sad. Fatigue Dash, big glad. But the issue with Fatigue Dash at this point is I have to Giga Stack to beat Fatigue decks sometimes. And it can be kind of hard to remember exactly what's in your deck and exactly in what order, right? It's difficult. And I've had 10 hours of sleep over 3 days. I'm dying here. My brain is pudding. So I'm like, damn, even if it's Fatigue Dash, it's like, ugh. But I'm fishing. I'm probing, right? I'm like, oh, yeah. How have your matchups been? Trying to see maybe if I can glean some information, right? Oh, yeah, it's been good. Blah, blah, blah. How about yours? Oh, it's been good. You know, I played against the Dash earlier. And as you know, it's a tough matchup. Just kind of looking. She's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I would say it's pretty favored for me. I'm like, okay, all right. Which indicates Boost Dash, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. But as we're talking, I'm kind of getting the sense that maybe she's not as confident as she's letting on, right? The words are confident, but I'm not feeling the conviction. Which, to be fair, happens to a lot of people when they play against Kano, because he can kill you from anywhere. So even in your good matchups, even if your matchup against Kano is good, you can still feel like, I really just don't want to play against Kano, right? Because sometimes I just die and that sucks. So we start playing. My opponent flips over. Pretty standard dash stuff, except it's Arcane Barrier 4 instead of 3, which is worse. But Boost Dash doesn't normally play Arcane Barrier 4. And then my opponent on their turn 0 casts Plasma Purifier, which Boost Dash doesn't bring in against Kano. And also, she pitches 2 red generic 3 mana 7 attacks, which you only play if you're playing Fatigue Dash. And I let out a big, oh, thank God, right? Thank God. I'm not going to like get boosted on. So we start playing and I have to start pitch stacking, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward 40 minutes and I combo my opponent. It just kind of worked out. You know, my opponent tapped too low. I had like 3 potions on board and just, which is generally what happened. If your opponent is playing a fatigue deck and they ever draw like 3 reds, they do just lose the game on the spot to Kano, which is why it's such a horrendous matchup for them. Anyway, I'm like 6-0 now. Yeah, I'm 6-0. Going in around 7, I play against my boy Ed Knight, who's also on Bravo, AB1. He gets exploded. He loses in like 3 minutes. So we're locked. We're 7-0 in the Battle Hardened. Oh, thank God. Thank God, right? There's only 2 undefeated players. It's me and Yuki Lee Bender. And if you play Flesh and Blood, you know who Yuki is. All the Guardians are AB1 now. Yeah, it's great. They're not beating Kano anyway. Yuki is Canadian, and she's very good. Very, very good. And she's on KO, the new hero. Now, I'm a bit hesitant about playing against KO, right? But luckily, this is just for seeding. We're both going to be top seeds, seed 1, seed 2. So we'll even be on opposite sides of the bracket, no matter who wins or loses. So we're both in top 8. We sit down. I put Yuki on the play because you want to block out against people who have high arcane barrier, which KO does for some reason. He has AB3. You want to block out and then start blasting on your turn to try to like take cards out of hand. It's just better. But instead of being able to block out, what happens is Yuki just beats me up. And I take 9 on turn 0. So I start the game at 21 points of life, which is half of my opponent's 40. So that's not good. I do my best to get back into the game. It doesn't really happen, and Yuki beats me. Yuki advances 8-0 first seed. I advance 7-1 second seed into top 8. Here's the thing about top 8. You get some cash and a playmat and everything, but you don't actually get like anything of... You don't get a PTI, a Pro Tour invite, unless you're first or second. So I have to try to be first or second, right? I still got to win the top 8. Now, I find out that I'm playing against the Dash player one more time, which is obviously very nice for me. The Fatigue Dash player. I'm prepared for this, right? So we start playing the game, and unfortunately, I just do like, I think it's like 60, 70 damage to my opponent pretty early in the game. Honestly, on like turn 4 or something. And I just get the dub. Now, I finish really fast. And so I'm just kind of watching the other games, trying to see like how everything else is going. And also I want to show you guys the picture of the top 8. That's what I was like looking for. Cause I think it's really funny and I think you guys are gonna kick out of it. I like to make funny faces in top 8 pictures. And so this is it. This is the top 8 picture. Here's Yuki, right? Here's me. And I mean, you guys watch my stream. You know I'm a pretty smiley person, but I thought it'd be really funny. So I'm standing in the front row, and right before we take the picture, I go, "Big smiles," and then I just go, and I thought that was so funny. And then someone found the picture and they retweeted, they quote tweeted it, and the caption is like, rumors have it Majin hasn't cracked a smile since they canceled LOR or something. And like, I thought that was really funny. So that's the Battle Hard top 8 picture. Oh, you guys want to go out? Okay. We're We're on to the semifinals, where I'm playing against Yuki's teammate, who is also on the same KO deck. And that's spooky, right? Because it's the only deck I lost to. So we're playing, and he's whooping my ass. He's beating me up. All good. Very, very strong player. And then a turn comes. I'm trying to set up the combos. All my Kanos are hitting like blues and shit. My hands that I need to keep cards are not working out. It's just like things aren't quite working out for me. But then there's a turn where my opponent casts a Wild Ride, and Wild Ride says draw a discard. And if you discard a 6 or more power, which is basically the entire deck, it gets go again. And so my opponent like casts Wild Ride, starts shuffling their hand, and presents their hand for me to pick. Which in my brain is just normal brute stuff, right? Because that's what Reinar used to do. He just casts a card, shuffles his hand, hands it to you, you pick one, and then they discard that card. But astute viewers may have noticed there was a step missing from that thing. Where was the draw card? So what happened was my opponent cast the card, shuffled it up, thanked Keko Plan for the prime, appreciate that, and presented for me to discard without actually drawing a card first. So my opponent just went -1 card. Someone leans over, says something to the judge, and the judge tells us to keep playing. So we keep playing. However, we find out later that that is the incorrect ruling. You cannot choose to not draw. You have to draw and then discard. But the judge told us to keep playing, so we kept playing. And I didn't even like really notice it, right? I'm like somewhere in between locked in and zoned the fuck out because like I'm so tired. I've been playing, this is round 10, right? It's honestly insane that we didn't make more mistakes. Round 10 of Classic Constructed. They're hour-long rounds each. 10 hours of competitive card games. And it has my opponent put in just a little bit less pressure, and I'm able to kill him pretty close to exactly. If he got to draw the card, would he have won the game? I don't know. But it obviously would have put him in a slightly better spot, right? So it's unfortunate that that happened, but you know, my opponent was a good sport about it. It is unfortunate that that's the ruling that happened. And I felt really bad because like people were next to me and behind me, right, like my friends and everything. And everyone was like, oh, let's go. You made finals. Yeah, you got the PTI. Yeah, woo, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because I don't want to celebrate because my opponent possibly just lost the game because of a bad judge call. And that feels bad. But, you know, opponent was a very good sport about it. Congratulated me, said good game, all that kind of stuff. Could he not have drawn the card after he noticed? No. Because we'd have to by the time the person who noticed and the judge had talked about it and then came back, we had already taken more game actions, and the judge ruled that you just missed the trigger, but you can't actually miss the trigger in that spot. The judge was just not clear on how a specific rule worked because rules can be weird. And and so by the time another judge was like, actually, it was too late. So I'm in the finals. However, I finished like way before. They're still on the quarterfinals of the other side of the bracket. So I'm like watching the games, and I'm watching Yuki just beat people up, right? She's in the semis, and Ed Knight, the Bravo player, is also in the semifinals. And so I'm watching it, and I'm just rooting for Bravo to win, right? I don't want to play against Yuki on KO again. Bravo's like an easier matchup. I'd much rather play against that. The game is insane. It's so close. It's such a good game. And it all comes down to the very end. Yuki has 4-card hand and an arsenal. The arsenal is the defense reaction. The defense reaction says blocks 4, cost 2, discard a random card. If it's a card with 6 or more power, your opponent takes 2 damage. Bravo's not on 2. He's on like 5 HP or whatever. You want to come up? Oh, you need to go outside? Okay, 1 second. I'm almost done with my story, Quinn. So Yuki has to cast the defense reaction to not die. In her hand is red, yellow, red. The yellow is Blood Rush Bellows. If one of the reds is like swing big, and the other red is pulping, which gets dominate. So there's a couple options. One, the defense reaction discards Blood Rush Bellows, and Yuki loses the game pretty much on the spot because the other two cards are red. Nothing can happen. And then Bravo's just going to win next turn. Pulping gets discarded. It takes some damage, and Yuki can come in for 8 on the following turn. But the game's not over because Edward can block and then attack with the hammer. And probably is quite still favored. Or Swing Big gets discarded. Ed takes 2, goes to 3. Pulping comes in for 7 with Dominate. Because of the Might token made from Bone Crusher, I think, or something. And Ed, unless he has a defense reaction, can only block 4 because he's got 1 block and equipment left. And he would be at 3. So, Yuki blocks, casts the card, shuffles the 3 cards. 1 out of 3 possibly wins the game for her. 1 out of 3 definitely loses the game for her. And 1 out of 3 puts her at not the best spot, but could definitely still win. Shuffles the hand, presents, and I'm like, please, dear God, pick Blood Rush Bellows. Please, dear God, pick Blood Rush Bellows. I don't want to play against Yuki, right? And he picks, he flips, and it's Swing Big. Swing Big gets discarded. Bravo takes 2. Yuki comes in with the pulping, dominated for 7. And it's exactly lethal. And Yuki advances to the finals. So now I'm playing Yuki in the finals. Again. Now, the good news is both of us got our Pro Tour invites, but the difference between first place and second place, 1 is the clout, which is important, and 2 is the gold foil, which is worth, I don't know, it's like $750 to $1,300, right? So we're playing like an $1,000 game here. And the clout. You can't put money on the clout, right? Especially winning with Kano, because winning with Kano is cool. So we start playing, and we have an incredibly good game. An incredibly good game. And I think I make like 1 or 2 decisions that if I can go back and change it, I would. I think most of the time it still gets me there. Clout with a T. It means social respect and points. Social points is what it means. I think if I make a couple different decisions, I probably get there. But I think I made a decision that wins me the game most of the time. But it didn't quite work out. Yuki, I'm not going to lie to you, played better than me. Yuki's a better player, which it frustrated me when I lost. I was frustrated. Now, I'm always a good sport when I lose. I would like to think I'm a very good loser. But I was frustrated. I didn't win, obviously. It was an incredibly close game. But I got a little bit outplayed. I got a little bit unlucky, and I made a little bit of a bad decision. And it frustrated me because I've developed, if we can get a little introspective here, over the last couple of years, I've developed a little bit of an ego, which sounds bad, right? But this has actually been a very good thing for me. I suffered from a lot of self-esteem issues for the vast majority of my life that kept me from really committing myself to things. And even when I was very good at things, if I wasn't the absolute best, I would kind of just take a back seat and let people be better than me. And it's something that I've been working on my whole life. So I've developed a little bit of an ego around card games and stuff. And it irked me that someone was better than me, right? It irked me that I wasn't as good. And I think moving forward, it's time for me to just get rid of that. Like, I don't like being frustrated. I think my like lack of sleep really contributed to that, right? I was just like upset and just not feeling good. Michael clearly has never lost to Michael Hamilton. I have never lost to Michael Hamilton, actually. No, I did in draft. So I didn't care that much about that. But yeah, I think it's time for me to, now that it's time to like really try up for TFT and stuff. I think it's gonna be really important that going forward, I just like completely kill my ego. I have a lot of learning to do, in multiple facets of games. I need to be better at limited, and I'm not very good at limited. And so I need to like shut up and listen when people tell me things. And then also I need to improve at TFT to a pretty like phenomenal degree. And I need to be more willing to accept people's advice and criticisms. Is having an ego really that bad? No, it's actually been very good for me. But I would like to think that I have more confidence in myself in general. So I don't think that it's is necessary. Right? I just feel more confidence in myself, period. And when I think I'm right, I will stand by that, right? I won't back down from that. But I need to be more open to, like I said, others' criticisms. Even if maybe I don't agree, it could introduce some things I haven't thought about. Like, for example, after the finals, Peter had a bit of criticism for me. Peter's my teammate and a fellow very strong Kano player. And he criticized one of my plays. He's like, you did this, and I think you should have done this. Now, Peter and I disagree about a lot of like super like high-level Kano plays where we get like super deep into it. Well, if it's this, and this, and then it's this, and then that, and then blah, then this would be slightly better. So like, for example, in my semis match, I made a play that Peter disagreed with, and I told him I would do it again every single time. We just disagree on some things. That's okay. But this time he criticized me and I snapped at him. And I feel a little bit bad about that. And Peter, I know you watch this, so I'm sorry I kind of snapped at you. I was just upset and hadn't been sleeping and stuff. And then later, after thinking about it for like an hour, I realized that I think he was right. That the play I made was, while going to get me there most of the time, probably a little bit suboptimal. And I should have taken a different line. And I thought about the other line and then decided to go the different way. So I know, Remy. I know. So yeah, moving forward, I'm going to try to be more receptive to criticism. That doesn't mean you in chat get to just start talking shit. But yeah, I think that's... I like to think I'm a very good Flesh and Blood player. But I still wouldn't put myself in the upper echelon of players. Like, I would say that there's people who are very good and can win an event, and then there's the people that are expected to win the event. And I'm not in the people who are expected to win the event. I'm expected to do well, but not quite the best in the room all the time. And so I'm going to be, yeah, like I said, just trying to like shed that ego and really work on it. And this is such a tangent. Oh my God. And I was just supposed to be telling a story, but I ended up talking about my feelings. So yeah, that was the trip. I came back and I slept for about 14 hours to actually catch up. I leave tomorrow on a plane to LA to go down to Riot for Riot Invitational. We have a meetup. Me, Grappler Sunny, and some of the other streamers are going to be at Dave & Buster's down there. You can check my Twitter or like my YouTube community thing to see where that's at. You can come say hi, come have some drinks, play some games, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is the story. Sorry I got so rambly at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for coming. See you guys next time.